Grade Center and the SpeedGrader. My name is Kathy Long. I'm the Senior Training Specialist for the Center for Instructional Technology. And joining me behind the scenes today to help answer questions in the question panel is Dr. Kara Monroe. So thank you for being here today. And let's go ahead and jump right into the IvyLearn platform and get started with how we use the Grade Center in IvyLearn. When we log into IvyLearn for the first time, or any time actually, we always open up to this dashboard page. And the dashboard, of course, has our global menu located over here on the left, our course cards where we can access our courses that we're either the student or a faculty member in. And you'll notice over here on the right-hand side, there is also a to-do list. Okay, this is called the sidebar. And I want to point out the sidebar to you today because this is one way you can actually access the Grade Center and the SpeedGrader option. And you do that by just clicking on one of those assignments. Okay, so you'll notice that we've already reached right into the actual assignment. And we can get to SpeedGrader right here. And SpeedGrader is just kind of a quick and easy way that you can grade assignments. And we're going to talk about that in just a few minutes because it is more of an advanced feature. But I wanted to let you know that right here on the dashboard, for your convenience, you can get to those graded assignments very quickly by simply using this to-do list on the right-hand side of the page. Okay, so that's one way that we can access the Grade Center. Now, typically, we're actually going to go into the course first and then access our Grade Center. So let's go ahead and go into my demo course here, our DBMS 120 course. And right now, you'll notice that we are actually in the instructor view. Okay. Over here on the left-hand side, this is our course menu. And to get to the Grade Center, either as a student or a faculty member, we're going to click the Grades button. When I click the Grades button, by default, it opens up to the full Grade Center. And there are really three areas in the Grade Center. And let me kind of point those out to you. So the first area is right here. This is kind of our toolbar, the way we can organize and how we can rearrange the Grade Center to our own particular view. Okay, so this is kind of our tools bar up here on the top right-hand side. This pull-down menu, for example, is how we can organize some of our content. Okay, we'll look at that in just a moment. This area right here, this is our student data area. Okay. So this is where we can access our student course information, our students' information, their secondary ID, as well as their personal information or their user profile. And then finally, over here, this is where we get our course data information. And this is typical Grade Center information. Every column represents an actual assignment in the course. Okay, so that's how we kind of navigate this area. So let's look at those in more detail. So over here on our little toolbar area, when I click this link, I can see the grading history. I can hide the student names. I can arrange my columns. I can treat all the blank lines, such as this one right here, as a 0. And we'll talk about this in just a moment. And I can also see my concluded enrollments, and I can also hide my notes column. So let's go through each one of these individually. When I click the grading history, this is very similar to what we had in our former Blackboard learning management system. And when I click that link, it automatically kind of in a list view shows me by date everything that I've done in the Grade Center. Okay? And you'll see a whole list. I've been using this demo course over and over again. And here's a whole list of everything that I have done in the Grade Center. You'll also see that my friend Kara Monroe has also been an instructor in the class. So on April 3rd, when she was doing a demonstration, she also made a change to the Grade Center. So it does track who was in your Grade Center and what changes were made. I want to point out to you that right up here at the top of the page, you'll notice that we're in the grades area in this particular course. This is the navigation trail, or our breadcrumb trail. Okay, so that's a familiar term that tells you what course you're in and what part of the course you're located in. I want to go back to the Grade Center, so I'm just going to click Grades, and it changes back into my global view. The next thing on my little cog wheel or my settings is I can hide student names. Now when I hide the students' names, this is something that we would do if we're going to do anonymous grading. So oftentimes as instructors, we might have an essay that might be a very controversial topic, and you necessarily might not want to see the student names. So for example, if I turn on or hide the names, everyone is just a student, and I can grade their work individually without knowing who that is, to remove any prejudice that I might have or supposed prejudice in my classroom environment. To turn my student names back on, I simply go to my pull-down menu here and show the student names. Okay. The Grade Center can appear to you in this form in two different ways. It will organize your content in two different ways. The first way here is by due date. So we've talked before in our, some of our other webinars how important and how we are now required as faculty to make sure that every assignment has a due date. And that due date, remember, influences that dashboard page on that to-do list. It corresponds with the student course calendar. Everything is arranged by due date in the IvyLearn platform. So we want to get in the habit of always adding a due date to all of our assignments. So one way I can see the Grade Center is by due date. So this logically lay this out for me by modules 1, 2, 3. I can also arrange the Grade Center by assignment group. So when I click this, you'll notice that my Grade Center has changed, and now I see all of my discussion boards, for example, are all in line together. So there's Module 7 discussion board, Module 9, Module 11. So there's all my discussion boards. Then I have all of my exams, and then I have all my lab assignments. So those categories that I give my assignments when I'm creating them is another way that I can organize my Grade Center. I personally like to see it by due date. It makes more logical sense to me. So I like to arrange my columns by due date. Okay. One of the other tools in this pull-down menu is I can treat all the ungraded lines in the Grade Center as a 0. So all these little lines here, I can treat this as a 0. Now the important thing to remember here is that this is only for your view as an instructor. Okay, it does not change things for the student. It does not broadcast out to the student that anything has changed. This is a view for you only. Okay, the user, the person who's in the Grade Center with the instructor role. So I want you to pay attention here. So let's look at Lindsay's total points here. She has, or her percentage is 94.58%. When I treat all of the ungraded assignments as a 0, you'll now see that Lindsay's total has now went to 9.68%. Okay, this only changes my view. It gives me an idea of what's going on with the students because what happens is only the graded assignments populate this total column. Okay, so we always have the student's grade reflects what they have completed in the course. Okay. When I change that back, when I deselect that, you'll notice that that total column has now changed back to reflect the student's true grade based on the work that they've done in the course. Now, when I use that pull-down menu, you notice that it changed all of these blanks to zeros. However, in this particular case with Tara and then also with Robert, I had entered 0 for their assignment. Okay, so that was a permanent part of the course. Okay, that was a permanent grade. So that did not get altered because I manually entered that grade for the student. Okay. All right, let's continue to look at the pull-down menu and see what our other options are. Okay, show concluded enrollment. This is not something that you're going to necessarily worry about in the Grade Center. The word concluded means that that particular course has already ended or that student's enrollment in the course has ended. You can also show inactive enrollments. This is really not features that you're going to use very frequently, but they are available to you. You can also create a notes column. Okay, so there's a notes column that is here. Using if I click on it, for example, I have said Lindsay has been a wonderful asset to this demo course, and she has. Poor Lindsay, by default, with the last name Adams, her name comes up quite frequently. She is actually part of our super user group and is a faculty member who helps faculty across the state learn how to use the IvyLearn platform. So she's been really wonderful. If you know Lindsay, tell her thank you. So I've created a note for her, and then I can click Save or Cancel. Oops. To enter it, I just click in the Notes page. And click Save. Okay, this is a general notes section. Typically, the notes section is really a note to you as the instructor and not necessarily a note to the student. Okay, to provide student feedback, what I would do is I would actually go into the cell where the student grade is located. And then I can click the little thought bubble that pulls up in the cell. So right over here in the right-hand corner, there's a little thought bubble. I can give the student a grade. Okay, and then I can click the little thought bubble and add a comment.
Hey, Kathy, we have a question from Sharon.
Sure.
She's asking, can students see comments in the notes column? And I believe the answer is no to that, but I just want to have you confirm that.
No. Okay, there's a difference. So right now, I am giving the student specific gradebook by clicking the little thought bubble. So I've clicked on the student's grade, and I've clicked the little thought bubble in the cell, and I'll show you where that is again. I've now added a comment, and I click Post Comment. Okay, so you'll now see right here there's a little thought bubble, and when I click that, you'll also see that my username and profile show up here, so the student knows who I am and the feedback that I'm giving to them. Okay, so I've added that particular feedback for the student. The student will now see that feedback in their Grade Center. Okay, the notes column here, this is specifically for you as the instructor. So if you remember in the Blackboard platform, we could make instructor notes to ourselves, and we could also make student feedback notes. And that's exactly what the difference is. Notes is for my own personal reference, and then the little thought bubbles within each individual grade are notes to the student. Okay. Within the Grade Center, so we've already went through all these features here. You'll also notice there's an import and export file. I don't recommend importing. I've never liked that feature in any of the LMSs. I just think that you should do your grading in the Grade Center. That's my own personal thought. There is a way for you to download the Grade Center, do grades offline, and then upload them. I don't particularly care for that, especially with the IvyLearn platform. They have a wonderful, amazing mobile app for Canvas mobile, and they also have SpeedGrader for your mobile phone. And I use my phone all the time to keep on top of some of the courses that I'm teaching in the IvyLearn platform. So I really like the mobile feature. I think you'll find it very usable and user-friendly, and it kind of makes the reasoning for import-export, the import feature at least, not the best choice. When I export, this is how I save my grade center. Okay, so as we know as a best practice, every time we update our grades, or at least once a week as a faculty member, we want to make sure that we're exporting our grades and we're keeping a backup of the grade center. And then we want to make sure that we just do that. It's very simple. There's not a lot of choices. We click CSV file. And basically, this is going to turn it into an Excel spreadsheet for you that you can actually keep on a storage device of your choice. Okay, so that's the export file. The other thing I want to show you here in our global view, and you'll see here the Grade Center has popped up as an Excel spreadsheet. It's kerchunking along. That's a technical term. Kerchunk, kerchunk. And then it opens up into this Excel spreadsheet, and you can adjust the columns to easily view. Okay, and you'll see here's the students, and all of the sections, the whole Grade Center is saved for you as an Excel spreadsheet. Very similar to what we did in Blackboard. Okay, all right, up here at the right-hand side, this is called the individual view. Okay, you'll also see there's a little keyboard. This icon gives you shortcuts, so computer shortcuts for all kinds of things within the system. You might see that keyboard icon several times throughout the IvyLearn platform. But when I click on individual view, this allows me to see the student by assignment or by individual. Okay, so I select my course, and I can sort the assignments by due date. I can do it by alphabetical order. I can do it by category. All right, as I scroll down, I have to select my student. And I want to see the first assignment. And I can see that she has already been graded. I can look at the submission details. I can see the student information. So here's my notes that I've made to myself about the student. And I can see a list of all of her grades. Now you'll see I've got a little warning note. Score, there's a little icon. That's a little triangle with an exclamation mark in it. Score does not include assignments from the group's final grade or attendance or extra credit or survey because they have no points possible. So there is a way when you add a Grade Center column, if it's not for points, that allows you to add that to the Grade Center, but it will notify you that those points do not exist and it's not part of the final score. Okay. I can now see the Module 1 homework assignment. I can see all of her submissions. I can also, there's these features called muted, message students who, set a default grade, and curve grades. And I'm going to show you these settings again in the global view, but they're all very powerful, nice tools, and I think you'll like those. Okay, so this is the individual view. I can also select the next student, or I can look specific to that student grade. So this is what we call the individual grade view. And it's a lot of flexibility, but it allows you to deal with just one student at a time instead of looking at the whole Grade Center. I can easily switch back to my global view by going to switch to default gradebook. Okay, so that's right up here on the very top of the page. And it takes me back into that global view of the entire gradebook. You might also notice that when I go into the global view of the Grade Center, that the course menu disappears. So up here on the left-hand side of the page, there's this universal icon. It's like 3 lines. And this is the universal icon for menu. Okay, so when I click on the menu, it now opens up my course menu for me so I can access different areas in the course. A lot of times when I'm doing grading, though, I want to use as much real estate as possible. So again, I can click that icon and I can minimize and hide that menu. I can also make my global menu a little bit smaller. If I scroll down to the bottom of this global menu, there's a little arrow, and when I click that arrow, what it does, it just changes into icons and removes the text. So again, I can maximize my space. Very helpful if you're grading on a laptop. And to open those back up, again, I just click the arrow again, and you'll notice that my icons now have text as well as an icon. And then I can also open up my course menu, again, by clicking that universal icon at the top of the page that opens up my menu. Okay, so just some quick tricks on navigation. All right, I can also search for a student using the search field. Okay, so here's Kara. I've looked her up. She's also a student and an instructor in this course. Kind of odd, but it's just the way we set up this demo course. So here's Kara in her student view. Okay, and she's got 100% in the class. She's always an overachiever. She's a very, very smart lady. And so she's got her total there. If I delete the name out of that field, it goes back to my global menu. So let's talk a little bit more about our student data information. So we remember here at the top of the page, this is our tools area, our options for the Grade Center. Then we have our student data area, which is this located right here. Okay. And then over here's our course data. All right, so when I click on a student's name, for example, it opens up on the right-hand side of the page. This is called the content card, okay? This is the user content card. And it kind of gives me an overview of how Lindsay is doing in the course. I can actually communicate directly with the student. So if she's missing an assignment or if I need to communicate with her, I can use the message button. So right beside her name, I can click the little message button and I can send her a notice that, hey, you're missing your assignment or please try again. Whatever that is, this is a way that I can communicate with that student. Now, this message will be based on how the student has set up their notification preferences. The student will be notified, and this message will also appear here on the left-hand side of the page in the inbox. And if you remember, this is where we access conversations. Conversations is the IvyLearn new vocabulary word for messages. You can also see a list of the student's grades here. I can see her overall grade. I can see that she's missing 23 assignments. I can see how often she's been late turning in assignments. I can see the last 5 graded items. So it's a nice visual overview of the student's success or progress in the course. I can also see how much she's participated in the class, and I can also see how many page views that she's looked at. Okay. So a lot of good information right here in the Grade Center about the individual student. Okay, and I do that just by simply clicking her name under the student name area. Okay, the secondary ID is the student's Ivy Tech email address. Now remember, we're not going to be using our email addresses very often because IvyLearn has a wonderful notification system in place. So we're going to use messages, which we can do directly from the Grade Center. We can send it from our conversations or messaging area here in our inbox. And then the student and you as an instructor as well can get any changes and notifications based on your personal preferences. So very, very powerful communication tool. Okay. All right, this is the total. And you'll notice that mine displays in percentage view. And it displays in percentage views because I have set up categories. So I have discussion board areas, I have homework assignments, I have exams, I have lab activities. Okay. If I was in a course where I had not necessarily set up categories, I would have the option from the total button here to actually change that to a point view. So if you're using categories or weighted columns, this always presents as a percentage. Okay. The other option that I can do right here from my toolbar is I can move this to the end of the Grade Center. So if I click Move to End, my total has now moved to the very end of the Grade Center. So if I scroll all the way over to the end, keep going, you'll now see that my total is at the very end of the Grade Center. Okay? I kind of like to have it at the front, but that is a personal choice. To move it back to the front, I just use my pull-down menu right here and select Move to Front, and it automatically moves that back to the top of the Grade Center. Okay. You will see here each individual grade column has a pull-down menu. And this is where we can get more information. So assignment details, this is very specific information about that particular assignment. The average score, the high score, the low score, and the total graded submission. So 5 people have submitted out of my class of, I think I have 50 people in this course, if not more. And the average score is 5.2, and the high score is a 10. Okay, so this gives you some quick analytics on what's going on with this particular assignment. I'm going to skip SpeedGrader for just a moment because this is my favorite IvyLearn tool. I love this tool, and I think you'll like it too. I'm going to select Message Students Who ... And when I click that, I can message all the students who, using this pull-down menu, haven't submitted yet. So I have all these students in my course who have not submitted an assignment for Module 1 homework. I can now send them a message. I send them the message, and then I click Send Message. Now, what I love about this is, one, it easily, automatically identifies for me the students who have not turned in their assignment. And I'll give you a real-life example of how I used this recently. I'm teaching IvyLearn 101, which is a self-paced online module. It's IvyLearn Basics for faculty. I have over 180 people enrolled in that course currently. Now, it is self-paced, but as the moderator of that course, I want to make sure that our faculty are prepared for the summer term, and I want to make sure that they're learning and staying on track in the course so they'll be prepared. So I just recently used this very tool, Message Students Who have not submitted yet, and I did my first assignment that's in that course. It's an assessment piece. It sends out this individual message to all these individuals in the course. Okay, so it was just a friendly reminder for them to get started on the course, and I was able to communicate with them. Now, what was so interesting about that, because how I've set up my notifications, not only did I have that message recorded here in my inbox, in my conversations area, but I also received that notification through my email account. So I was actually able to see responses back from students, both here in my inbox and in my Ivy Tech email account, because that's how I'd set up my preferences. So it really allowed me to be notified almost immediately that a person had a question about that particular course, and it didn't require me necessarily to log into IvyLearn to do that. And I was able to continue that communication with the student that way. Okay, so this is very, very, very nice. So I can message students who haven't submitted yet. I can also use this tool to say students who haven't been graded. So oftentimes we will have a large project or a research project that takes a lot of time for faculty to grade. So one of the things we might want to do is we might want to send, we get behind in our grading and we've graded half the class. So we might want to go ahead and send a message to those who haven't been graded. So I would say, hey, dear so-and-so or dear students, just wanted to let you know that I'm still in the grading process, and I hope to have your assignment graded within the next 48 hours. And I can send that message out. And it's very nice because IvyLearn does identify who those students are. I can also close the learning loop. So if I have a student who scored less than 5 on this quiz, okay, I can actually send them a message. So maybe I'm teaching fractions, for example, and the students are not really grasping that concept because they scored very low on their homework assignment. I could send them a message, kind of try to send them a supplemental material. For example, I might send them to the Khan Academy or send them to a YouTube video or some kind of supplemental material about how to do fractions. This allows me to reach out to those students who individually need that help, or I might reference students to go to our tutor.com site for additional assistance. It allows me to close that learning gap with our students, so I really, really love this particular tool. I can also send a message to students who scored more than. So maybe we've had students who've done an exceptional job. I can also say students who scored more than 5, good work, keep up the good work, I'm glad you're taking advantage of our tutoring services, whatever that message is. And instead of having to do this by each individual student, IvyLearn has kind of taken that burden off of you and helped you to identify those students in these particular case studies. So I hope you like that tool as much as I do. Okay. We also can set a default grade. Okay, give all students the same grade for Module 1 homework. So maybe it's a participation grade, maybe for whatever reason, whatever this assignment, maybe there was a huge technical glitch and you want to give them a benefit of the doubt. For example, sometimes in our online faculty certification course, some of the practice shells do not get set up correctly, so students cannot complete their assignment on how to give good grading feedback because the students are missing from their practice shell. This is just one real-life example. So in that case, it wasn't the faculty or the participant's fault that their course was not set up correctly, so I will give them the benefit of the doubt and give them the same grade as I'm giving other students in the course. So you can also set a default grade in the IvyLearn platform. You can curve grades, not something that we typically do here at Ivy Tech, but that is an option for as well. I can download all the submissions depending on how that submission was made. So if I'm going to do a lot of grading papers and I want to do that offline, maybe a portfolio, something like that, I can download the submissions. The other tool that's new to the IvyLearn platform is called Mute Assignment. So when I click Mute Assignment, what that does, it turns off all the notifications for the students in the course. Okay, so no grade appears, even if I'm halfway through the grading period or that assignment, it doesn't show any grades. So for example, if I'm doing those portfolio reviews and I'm working through that process, I might want to mute the assignment. Because sometimes you'll have students who are very collaborative, and Susie will say, hey, I got my grade, did you? And Bob says, no, I didn't get it, and that prompts another email. So what you can do is you can mute the assignment, which allows you to grade the assignment without providing any feedback to the student or allowing to see what that grade is until you unmute it. So when I mute the assignment, it does send a message to the student, so when they look in their grade center, and they look for it, it shows that the assignment is muted. And you'll see there's this little icon, which is a kind of speaker with a line through it. This lets you know that this assignment is muted. You know it, it's a visual icon, and it'll also let the students know that that assignment is muted and exactly what that means. Okay, so that's the mute. I can unmute that assignment. I will also tell you from experience that every time I demonstrate that particular tool, that the way I have my notifications set up, I get email prompting me to let me know that I muted the assignment, and then also when I unmuted the assignment. So notifications is something you're going to want to play around with and see what works best for you. Okay. You'll notice too that there are different icons here within the Grade Center. And I'm going to switch back over because there's many, many icons, and I want to share those with you and what that looks like when you're grading assignments. So I'm going to switch over really quickly to my PowerPoint presentation so I can share some of these icons with you. Okay. So there are several grading types and things that you will see in the IvyLearn platform. And I'll kind of go through those with you. Okay. So you'll remember when we were in the live grading center that, here's our tools and options for organization. Here's our student info, and then here's the actual grading center. So number 1 here, this is a dash, and this means there has been no submission. Okay, this is a legend. So there has been no submission from that student. Okay. Number 2, this is exactly what you think it is. This is a point. So the student received 10 points for that particular assignment. Okay. 3, when we see the check mark, just like in our Blackboard platform, we could select complete or incomplete. So yes, the student has completed the assignment, or an X means no, they did not complete the assignment. So this is the way it displays if you select complete or incomplete. Okay. Here we have a letter grade, so you can also, when you're setting up your assignment, you can actually set it to display as a letter grade. And this displays as a letter grade and as a point. So that's what this view looks like. We can also, this is the percentage, so this grade, as you set up your grading assignment, displays as a percentage. So these are your gradebook views, and this is a setting that you would establish when you're actually creating the assignment. Okay. Over here, number 7, this is actually displays as a GPA. I personally can't think of a case scenario where we would use this necessarily in our environment. Maybe if someone has an idea how that might work in your teaching strategies, you'd be glad to share that with us. But this is also Canvas, what we call IvyLearn, is also a K-12 system. So this might be an application that's more for the K-12. Okay. And finally, number 8, you'll see EX. So if you want to exempt students from a particular assignment or give them an excused assignment, so you don't want to hold this against them, you can enter in EX instead of a point or a grade. Okay, so EX exempts them from that, so it doesn't add to their grade book calculations.
Kathy, while you're switching gears, Valerie asked a question about if there's an indication that you'll get when assignments need grading, if there's an indication instructors get. I've completed several assignments in the course while you've been doing the demo, so as you go back, you might want to show where you would see those notifications.
Okay. Actually, we're going to come up to that in just a second.
Okay, great.
And then we'll look at it in the live platform as well. So thank you. Great question, Val. So this is a differentiated assignment view. And what that means is basically when you set up several group assignments, so maybe you're using, you have several research groups, for example, that are working. When you have differentiated groups, it means that, so Joe and Nora and Jane here are in a different group. So they will not have a line, so you can't enter a grade for them, and it'll be grayed out. So differentiated assignments typically just means if your students have different assignments to complete, then they won't appear in the Grade Center. And it helps you keep their calculations very clean. So this, if you're using groups, you might see this differentiated assignments page. Okay. There are several warning icons that show up within the Grade Center. One of them we've kind of already seen before. This little triangle with the exclamation mark in it, it's usually blue. This notifies you that the assignment is part of an assignment group with no points possible and cannot be included in the final grade calculation, or the assignment does not count towards the final grade. Okay, so sometimes we might include an attendance column, for example, or we might offer extra credit to our students, and we would have 0 points possible for the grade, okay, but then we add extra points for them. This is a little warning. It just tells you that this is not part of the grade calculations and that there is some kind of It's part of an assignment group, so there are no points possible. Okay, so these little icons, the little triangle with an exclamation mark, will show up on the Grade Center column, and it'll also show up over here in our total column. So here's the little exclamation with the triangle, and when it's black, it just notifies you that that final score does not include one of the assignment groups. And I can show you an example of that when we go back into the live system. Okay, so this is just a little warning to you that there is some kind of calculation that has a 0-point setting. Okay, occasionally you will see colors that appear in the Grade Center columns, okay, in the individual cells. Okay. The yellow shading, so right here for Emily, you'll see that her little cell is kind of a yellow color, and yellow indicates that the student has resubmitted the assignment. Okay, so they've used multiple attempts or they've resubmitted the assignment and it needs to be viewed again. Okay, the pink shading down here, number 2, example number 2, this is kind of pink. I don't know if you can really see that on your screen, but this indicates that it's a late submission. So if a student posts an assignment after the due date, it will turn pink. Okay, just giving you a visual confirmation that it is a late assignment, and you can determine whether you want to deduct points for that or not. Okay, and then the graded area here, this indicates that the grade has been dropped. Okay, so there is a way when you're setting up assignments where you can drop the lowest grade or you can accept the highest grade when you're doing multiple attempts. So this is in the Grade Center view. This is what this indicates. So yellow, the student has resubmitted the assignment. Pink, it's been submitted late. And then grayed out means that that grade has been dropped from the grades calculations. Okay. I think that I either missed one of my pages or I did not add it to my slides, and I do apologize for that. Let me show you. When you are in the live Grade Center, for example, I have a couple examples here. So you'll notice here, one, it's pink, so this assignment was submitted late, but there's these little icons that indicate what type of submission this is. And you'll see here that this is a document submission, okay? The T, for example, here indicates that this is actually a text submission. So the student has written in a text message to me. So if you think about in our Blackboard learning environment, when students are submitting an assignment, they can actually send you, write that in the content editor, the text box. That would be indicated here by the T. Or if they've submitted a document, it would be located here with this little icon. So this is very unique to the IvyLearn platform, is oftentimes you will see these different icons which indicate what type of submission the student has presented to you. So let's take a look at those really quickly. Okay, so if I'm going to grade this particular submission, okay, I'll see that she submitted a particular document. I can give her the grade. You can tell that it was submitted late. It tells you here, as well as indicating that it's pink. And then we have the actual document. I'm going to show you that just a minute when we go to SpeedGrader. When I click on this particular document, okay, there are more details in SpeedGrader, okay, and it was submitted late as well. So let's go ahead, before we go to SpeedGrader, I want to go down here and see Kara's submissions that she recently submitted, and let's see what that looks like in the Grade Center. So I'm going to filter by student. I've opened up her participation card, her content card. And Kara, you said that you had actually completed a couple new assignments?
I did. The research project where you can see, and then a couple of the exam 2, which I did terribly on, by the way.
Okay. All right. So here we see that exam 2 has been submitted. And you'll notice that there's this little icon here. This is a little, another icon that you can become familiar with. This means that this particular test is an online submission, and it also needs grading. So there's probably some kind of essay or some kind of student work that's been submitted that as an instructor I need to look at. Okay, I can also see the scoring details, and that's what this little indicator means here. Okay, you'll notice too, when I look here, there's this little icon with a thought bubble. This means that I've given feedback to this particular student. So this student has feedback here on this particular assignment. And Julia brought up a good point. It's very confusing about what these legends mean and how can I find them and why is it not in the Grade Center. And unfortunately, I agree with you. Blackboard did a nice job of posting what those looked like. Unfortunately, though, they don't do a good job of sharing those icons here on the actual Grade Center page. So it's just something that's going to take a little time to learn and train on. And then also the Canvas guides are very, very helpful for that. Okay. The other thing you can do, if ever you're in doubt, you can always roll your cursor over a particular item, and it will tell you what that item stands for. Okay, so that does give you some visual indicators as you scroll over different items. Okay.
Hey, Kathy, sorry.
Yeah.
Could you go back to the home page for this course for just a second? I just want to see something because I get a little different visual indicator than you do, and I'm wondering if it's a student indicator. Okay, so that was what I was looking for. Over on the to-do column, this is back to Valerie's question of how do you see what you have to grade. And Valerie, you can see there on Kathy's screen on the to-do column on the right, those green numbers, those indicate that you have submissions to grade for a student. So you don't have to go into the grade book in order to get those. You just have to look there on the to-do list, and it'll show you what you have to grade. And you can see a couple of those things that I submitted are very late assignments, so those come back up as items that need to be graded.
And this is a great point. So we know on the dashboard, I indicated to you that I could always click on the assignment and get to the Grade Center that way. Okay. We can also go here on our to-do list when we enter into the course. And as an instructor, I can click this particular assignment, and it opens up in the SpeedGrader view. Okay, so here's SpeedGrader. Okay. By the way, I forgot to mention earlier, on the GoToWebinar control panel, there is a handout. And the icons that I just used to show you those individual displays actually came from the Canvas guide, and a link to that is located both. I think Kara's just posted that for one of our online technology coordinators, but it's also located on that handout. So you can access those materials after the presentation is over. All right, so SpeedGrader. This is SpeedGrader, and what it allows you to do, it's a wonderful mobile app. You can use it on your phone. You can use it here in the IvyLearn platform on your computer. You can use it on your iPhone or your Apple iPad, whatever you want to do. So for this particular assignment that I clicked on, this is actually a written document. Okay, so here's my student name. Across the top, there's a series of icons. And basically what SpeedGrader allows you to do is go from one student to the other very quickly, grading their assignments. And you can get to SpeedGrader from that home page. You can get there through the Grade Center. There are several ways. You can also get there through the module when you click on the assignment. Okay, so there's several ways to get to SpeedGrader. So over here, there's a series of icons across the top of the page. The first one, this ABC book, takes you back to the Grade Center, the proper Grade Center, okay, so the full view. So when I click on the ABC, it takes me back to the full Grade Center, okay. So if you remember, I accessed that from my module homepage to get into that particular assignment. When I click on the actual Grade Center column, I can actually get to SpeedGrader here. So I click on SpeedGrader again. Okay. I can also mute or unmute the assignment. So remember, when we mute the assignment, students don't get any notifications, and I can grade kind of in peace, if you want to think of it that way. There's a little keyboard icon, and that is the shortcuts. So any keyboard shortcuts you might want to use can be located here. This information button actually takes you directly to the Canvas guides for additional help. And then there's this little cog or the settings wheel. And when I click on settings, I can now use my SpeedGrader option. So I can sort the student list by student name alphabetically, the date they submitted the assignment, or by submission status, needs grading, not submitted, etc. Okay. And I can save those settings. Okay. So right now, I've established this where I want to see the students who need grading for this particular assignment. Okay. You'll see that 5 out of 111 students have been graded. The average for this is a 5.2 out of 10%, and this is student number 1 out of 111. I can go from back and forth scrolling through the students. Okay, so Mark, for example, the student does not have a submission for this assignment. Okay. You'll notice, this should be familiar to you, this opens up Crocodoc. So anytime that I submit a document, you will see the Crocodoc that appears. So I'm going to, I can make comments. And I can place my cursor where I want that comment to take place. I should be able to do that. Doesn't want to respond. I can draw on it. Okay. I can add text. I can change the font size. I can change the color. Please be kind of conscious of our disability support students and make sure that you are using appropriate colors that are easy to read. Okay. I then can give a student a grade. I can give a comment to the student. I can also add a file, and this is pretty cool. I now have 2 new options. I can actually do a voice to text. Okay, so I just simply click the record button. I have to have a microphone. So good job. You did a wonderful work. Period. Please continue to use tutor.com. So I just spoke into my microphone, and it's continuing to record my message because I never hit the stop button. Okay, I can then edit that, or I can submit to the student. I can also, so that's text-to-speech. How wonderful is that? And I can also do a quick web message to my student as well by using my web camera. This is available in all the content areas, anywhere that you can add content, and also in the Grade Center. If I have a webcam plugged in, and I'm not sure I do, I just click that webcam, and then I click the record button, and then I hit stop, and it automatically populates my assignment comments with a video. So pretty darn cool. Speech to text is a little microphone. I have my video that I can send a web message back to, or I can actually add a document. Okay, I can also type in this little text area here, and then I click submit. Okay, so now I see this crazy rambling message that I sent to my student, and the student now has a check mark beside their name indicating that I've graded her assignment, and I can now select the next person who hasn't been graded, or I can select this arrow button to go to the next student. So this is an example of a text submission. So remember I said we could do a document, or in the Grade Center there was that T for text. This is what they did. They just simply put a message using the content editor. Carol, that's exactly right. Carol says this is pretty much the same Crocodoc we were using in Blackboard with a couple new features. That is exactly what you use to grade essays. The Crocodoc is a feature that's been available in most learning management platforms, but the unique part of grading in the IvyLearn platform are these new capabilities of doing voice to text, or actually doing a video commentary. So nice, great information here. And just to demonstrate that again, I've entered in a grade for my student, and I'm going to click on my voice to text. Rika, you did a great job, period. I am glad to see that the tutor.com service is helping you with your writing, period. If you have any questions, please do not hesitate to contact me during my office hours, period. Pretty nice job. It really kind of recognized my voice very well, and it's continuing to. I've now given that student feedback, and if I didn't like anything, or something was misspelled, or I didn't understand, for example, I don't want that last bit of gibberish, I can just delete that and then click submit. Okay, Valerie, let's see. Valerie asked me if there's a way I can see the student view of my Crocodoc comment. So let's see. I'm going to go back into my Grade Center. And I know that Heather Aerosmith was the person that I gave Crocodoc feedback to. Okay. Now, what I'm about to do is not a feature that is available to all faculty or all staff. I'm getting ready to masquerade as this particular student. I have this privilege because I'm an administrator in the IvyLearn platform, and it is not something that I would normally do, but for demonstration purposes, I'm going to show you what Heather would see when she goes to the Grade Center. Anytime I do masquerade as a user that is identified, it's recorded, it notifies who the person was that was masquerading. It's used for troubleshooting purposes, and it also tells how long and where I was in the course. So it's all very much documented, and truly it is used for, in this case, a demonstration purpose, and then also for troubleshooting if there's something going wrong technically in the IvyLearn platform. Okay, so we're now viewing this as a student, okay? You'll see that I am masquerading as Heather Aerosmith. There's an indicator across the bottom of the page. And remember, our students will see their grades the same place we go to add those grades, by clicking the Grades button on the course menu. You'll see here that there is a little circle with a 2 in it. So the student sees that there have been 2 items that have been graded in her grade center. So when I click on grades, okay, the one thing you'll see is Module 1 homework. You'll see that she received an 8 out of a 10, that there is a comment, okay, and there's also see the scoring details. So let's go ahead. We can actually click on the link. Okay, I can click the view feedback, and you'll see that here I indicated to the student, please use bold font, and I made my little circle here. You will also see that I have my message to the student is located over here on the right. The student can actually respond back to me. So if there's something that they do not understand, she could respond back to me here. She could also respond with the same media that I had to communicate with her. So she could do voice-to-speech or actually use her webcam, and she can also attach a file. Again, to see that, I went to the Grade Center as the student. I then clicked on the homework assignment. In the right-hand corner, it says View Feedback. And the student was able to see my documented changes in the Crocodoc, and also see the message that I sent to her. And again, she can actually respond back to me in the Grade Center. So again, the communication tools, I think, on the IvyLearn platform are a lot more interactive. So instead of just doing a lot of static text messaging to our students, they can actually interact, and it becomes a very rich dialogue in the learning environment for both the faculty member and the student. So that is SpeedGrader as a whole, okay? And again, to get to SpeedGrader, I'm going to go ahead and stop masquerading. To access SpeedGrader, I can go to several different ways. I can go directly to the assignments. I can actually go into the Grade Center. So let's see, we were doing Module 1 homework assignments. And here's SpeedGrader. Again, and the SpeedGrader view just allows you to move from one student to the other. So here's Kara's assignment, for example, and I set up my particular option to see the students that need grading. Okay, you can alter that at any time. I can go over here to my settings, and I can sort the student list. I have by submission status, but I can also see it alphabetically or by the date they submitted the assignment. And then I click Save Settings. Okay, I'm now again in my Crocodoc area, and I can add comments. I can draw. I can highlight things. I can add text. I can actually strike out information as well. And I enter my grade, and then just like everything in IvyLearn, we're always going to click Submit. Okay. Well, it looks like we went past our time just a little bit. I hope you've learned a lot about the Grade Center and that you find it as easy and wonderful to use as I do. Again, I really like that the way that you can communicate to students who have not submitted assignments yet. That's probably one of my favorite tools in the IvyLearn platform. I want to thank Dr. Monroe for joining me and helping to facilitate the question box. We will both stay on the line with you for just another few minutes to answer any questions that you might have, but we do appreciate you being here, and eventually we will have a recording of this presentation as well on our IvyLearn statewide training page. So please feel free to check that out. All right, thank you and have a great day.